Alright, so let's get into it. We're going to go for a step one. You got a Grand Marquis, Crown Victoria, whatever. You want to do E85. The first thing you want to do is make sure you got a lot of E85 in your area. Because if you're going to run E85, you're going to need to use it, and you're going to need to be able to transport some to different areas if you're going to plan on traveling on the highway. And this could differ between people who stay local and people who go elsewhere. Or you're going to have 2 flash tunes with you at all times when you got to swap to gasoline when E85 is not available in an area that you're in. So you got choices out there. Anywho, let's get to it. For the meat and potatoes of this, make sure all your components in the car are good. That means you got a good OEM fuel pump or better equivalent. That's like Walbro, Aeromotive sometimes. I'm not big on Aeromotive, to be honest, but they work. I've seen a lot of failures with their fuel pumps. This Walbro fuel pump I've got in the Marauder tank right now has easily over like 40,000 miles on it already, and that's non-stop driving E85 constant, and I ran E85 on the stock OEM fuel pump because it's a good fuel pump. You also want to be sure you got OEM fuel lines or better. If you've got these aftermarket fuel lines that aren't of quality and it's just nonsense you get from the parts store, don't do it. If you got fuel filters that are from the parts store, replace it with a Motorcraft. I've run Motorcraft fuel filters on E85 for over 300 to 350,000 miles, which is 3 warranties worth for a car, and I've had no issues whatsoever with those fuel filters. Go to a part house fuel filter, immediately that fuel filter came apart in maybe 5,000 miles. It wasn't any good anymore. So always make sure you remember that. As long as your fuel pump is good, as long as you have OEM or higher, better injectors, FIC, Bosch, Ford, Injector Dynamics. If you have stock or better in your fuel injector setup, you will be okay. You're not going to clog fuel injectors up. The only reason people are clogging anything up is because they have aftermarket or bad fuel lines, because they have a lot of nonsense in their fuel tank, gas, or their old filters that they're using. I suggest swapping your fuel filter out on your preventative maintenance, which is something you should do at least every 10 to 20,000 miles in that range. That's the general service interval for that on any car, especially on these cars. Run Pennzoil, Platinum, or Amsoil engine oil. I've tested these constantly, and it shows good, and it works. So it's a good engine oil to use. There are other engine oils out there, but this engine oil, I've tested it as the better engine oil over the course of time, just racing and doing everything else. Then after I tested it, Project Farm did his review on it and found it to match results that I also saw. And then after that, I also started doing engine oil samples on all the engine oils to see how well it was doing. And the older this engine has gotten, and this engine in the Marauder is approaching 200,000 miles, we're about to roll 160,000 miles very soon, the wear on the engine has only gotten better. Now, excuse the roughness, these raggedy ass roads we got out here, so road's gonna be rough as hell, but just look at that and how well that's done, and you'll understand that Pennzoil Ultra, the engine oil is great. People get out there and they get on the internet and they start whining because you talk about an engine oil. Well, there's proof to back this up. So you can piss and moan and whine all you want, but there's evidence to back it up. Moving on, if you're going to want your E85 car to be reliable, you have to do preventative maintenance. If you're going to have a boosted vehicle, I suggest changing the engine oil between 3,000 and 5,000 miles. Do not exceed the 5,000 to 5,500 mile range on that engine oil or any other engine oil. It's the one time I did reflect a bad sample when I had to get over 6,500 miles on the engine oil, naturally aspirated in the middle of like negative 10 degree cold weather, heavy fuel enrichment and everything else, very hard on the engine. I got one bad sample from that because literally it's all the things you don't want to do with engine oil happening at one time. Now, the caveat there about that is, while that happened, it was a very good test to see what the limits of that engine oil were, and we saw it's within the service interval, and then some. You're getting a bonus out of it. So you're not even having to like run a max interval and have issues. My God, this road is really up. Gotta censor myself there because YouTube and algorithms. Anyway, if you're gonna do E85, there are a lot of things to consider, not only logistical, but also for the vehicle itself. But it is possible to do, and it is viable to do. Your engine fuel economy will drop slightly. If your tune is correct, you should only see, depending on the content of the ethanol, maybe a 10% drop in fuel economy. I've seen as tight within a margin of error as 5%. And that depends on where exactly it's at as far as your air-fuel ratios, naturally aspirated or boosted, etc. If you're running premium in the car, this is going to give you a net savings every time. No bars, no frills about it. You're going to save money. Premium gas is expensive, especially if you live in funny states like New York, California, or states closer up north where gasoline may sometimes be more expensive. Now, if you're going to run regular gasoline, you're going to get performance, much more performance, and a much cleaner engine than you would running regular gas, but you are not going to save money unless the price of E85 at that time is drastically lower. And it's very rare that it is, especially in today's economy with the way fuel pricing is going. So keep that in mind. Look at your options. Make the best decision you can for the E85 if you want to convert to it, and understand that you can put it in your vehicle immediately. Get a tune. Make sure you have a good fuel pump. Make sure you have good fuel injectors. Make sure you're using OEM or better quality parts, period. I don't want to hear any of this, get this cheap part. Do not get cheap parts. Get the part that you need. And what's funny is those parts are cheap. Damn fuel filter costs like $5 to $10 from Ford. Get it. A fuel pump, a Walbro 450 liter per hour pump. One of the most reliable pumps that I've ever run. I ran it on my boosted vehicle, and I ran that car for 18 hours straight, never turned the car off. And that fuel pump is still in the other Cobra now today, running with well over 100,000 miles and several years of constant use on it in E85. Walbro 450 pump. Bam, get on Amazon.com. You can get these fuel pumps for $130 to $150. There is no reason not to get this fuel pump. Do not go to do not go to the parts store and get the nonsense that they sell in there. It's junk. Pass it up. Get a Walbro fuel pump. Be reliable. Be quiet back there. You don't even hear it running, and get a lot of reliability out of the pump and the performance. You're getting all three things: cheap, reliable, and performs well. It's the trifecta. It's a no-brainer. Go get the fuel pump. Stop watching this video. Go get the fuel pump. No excuses. Tune the car, run, be happy. That's that. I don't really have much else on this video for advice. A little longer than I expected it to be, but it's valuable knowledge and information, and I want to make sure you have it out there. So if you're trying to change to E85, go do those things. If you got questions, leave it below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Do your thing. I'll see you guys later.